Across all human cultures, statistical data reveals consistent behavioral divides between men and women. We see highly predictable differences in rates of physical aggression, risk-taking behaviors, and the specific criteria each sex prioritizes when selecting a mate. The prevailing explanation for these divides is the standard social science model. This framework assumes the human mind is a blank slate, and that any behavioral differences are almost entirely the product of modern cultural conditioning and socialization. Evolutionary psychology offers a strictly biological counterframework. It posits that the mind is not a general-purpose processor, but rather a collection of highly specialized, domain-specific algorithms. These cognitive mechanisms were shaped by the environment of evolutionary adaptedness. The environment of evolutionary adaptedness refers to the set of historically recurring selection pressures during the Pleistocene epoch that formed specific adaptations. Modern human minds are essentially ancient software programs operating hardware built to survive these specific, brutal prehistoric conditions. Universal behavioral differences are the visible macroscopic outputs of ancient survival and reproductive programs operating in a modern world. To understand why these behavioral programs differ by sex, we have to look past macroscopic culture and examine the biological root cause at the cellular level. The defining biological divergence between males and females is anisogamy. Anisogamy is the form of sexual reproduction involving the fusion of two dissimilar gametes, cells used in reproduction, defined by a severe difference in their size. This diagram shows the physiological asymmetry between these cells. The single human ovum on the left is a massive, highly complex cellular package requiring substantial metabolic resources. Conversely, male spermatozoa on the right are produced in massive abundance, rapidly replenished, and require minimal energy. The vast complexities of human culture, mating, and sexual conflict all trace back to this single microscopic inequality in caloric and cellular energy expenditure. In 1972, evolutionary biologist Robert Trivers formulated a framework to map how this cellular asymmetry scales up to behavior, known as parental investment theory. Trivers defined parental investment precisely. It is any time, energy, or resource expenditure that benefits one offspring at the expense of the parent's ability to invest in other or future offspring. This matrix plots the obligatory biological investment floor for each sex. Females require inescapable gestation and lactation, strictly capping their maximum reproductive rate. Males' obligatory investment is strictly copulation. With near zero physiological cost, their potential reproductive rate is exponentially higher. This structural imbalance dictates a core economic principle. The sex that bears the higher obligate investment automatically becomes the limiting biological resource for the reproductive success of the other sex. Because females are locked into a high minimum investment strategy, biological supply and demand inevitably forces males to compete for reproductive access. Bearing the heavy cost of reproduction, females must protect their biological investment. Evolution selects for rigorous psychological filters, creating a dynamic of intersexual selection where females are highly selective about mating. This selectivity relies on specific cues. Intersexual selection filters for resource acquisition, cues of high social status, and superior genetic quality, as these traits historically improved offspring survival. Conversely, the sex investing less faces a completely different adaptive problem. Males must evolve traits optimized for intersexual competition, competing against other males for access to the limited resource of female investment. To secure access to mates, this competition frequently manifests in heightened risk-taking behaviors and elevated rates of physical aggression. This graph plots Buss and Schmidt's sexual strategies theory. We see a significant data gap in the propensity for short-term mating strategies, with males displaying a persistently higher drive to maximize their low-cost reproductive potential. These are known as facultative adaptations. A facultative adaptation is a biological mechanism that adjusts its expression based on environmental inputs, such as local resource levels or social structure. What society often labels as gendered behavior is the macroscopic execution of ancestral reproductive risk management. This disparity in biological investment also drives specific forms of sexual conflict, vividly illustrated by the universal human emotion of jealousy. This flowchart maps each sex's unique evolutionary vulnerabilities. Ancient males faced paternity uncertainty, creating the severe risk of investing resources into a rival's DNA. To prevent this catastrophic failure, natural selection favored a specific cognitive module in men, a sexual jealousy trigger. Females possess 100% maternity certainty, but face a different vulnerability: resource diversion. Their primary evolutionary risk was a male abandoning his parental investment. This selected for an emotional jealousy trigger, calibrated to detect and prevent the loss of a partner's long-term commitment. Even our most visceral and seemingly irrational emotions operate as highly precise, rational evolutionary adaptations designed to protect ancestral genetic investments. To analyze biological behavior accurately and separate conscious intent from evolutionary function, we rely on the framework established by Nobel laureate Nicholas Tinbergen. Tinbergen's matrix separates a proximate cause, the immediate brain mechanism, from an ultimate cause, explaining why evolution selected it. The function quadrant represents evolutionary psychology, focusing entirely on the ancestral reproductive problems a trait evolved to solve. Individuals do not consciously calculate inclusive fitness, gamete costs, or reproductive rates when they feel love, jealousy, or attraction. The proximate feeling is merely the mechanism executing the ultimate evolutionary function. Confusing conscious proximate feelings with ultimate evolutionary functions is the reason critics often equate evolutionary psychology with biological determinism. Currently, the behavioral sciences operate in disjointed silos, frequently treating human psychology as an anomaly existing completely outside the laws of the natural world. Yet, tracing the biological reality of anisogamy through the Trivers model provides a unifying logic for human actions that otherwise appear baffling. By applying evolutionary theory to the mind, the field provides a model to connect human psychology to the broader biological sciences. Identifying these evolved adaptations allows for the analysis of the persistent algorithms that shape human nature.